When I started this project, I was determined to be as faithful as possible to the book. Now, of course, these are two different media. One is a book, a novel, which can have an entire interior life to its musings, which you can't have really in film. In film, you have to have a more straight-line narrative. So yes, there have been adaptations. Some scenes happen before other scenes. Some people say some things in one scene in the book, and they say them a little differently in my film. But I think at the end of the day, people will look at this, and those who really know the book will see that it's a very faithful adaptation of the story. With the wardrobe, I wanted to have, like the production design, I wanted to have a wardrobe that had a very distinct look for each of the tribes, each of the families, each of the planets in Dune. And when I came to Prague, I knew that there was a designer here named Theodor Pištek who had won an Academy Award for Amadeus. And I also knew that he was kind of a national treasure here in the Czech Republic because he's one of their premier artists. I was lucky enough to have an interview with him. He didn't really want to do the job at first because he doesn't like sci-fi. I said, Dodo, this is not sci-fi, okay? We're not going to have people in sort of body-fitting Star Trek outfits. I want you to think of this as Shakespeare. I want you to think of this as Oriental, because we've created a design concept that is very much an amalgam of sort of Arab Oriental. The story of Dune is really an accessible story that people who might never pick up a science fiction book could understand and embrace, because it's really a story that we all kind of understand. The story of a young boy who's taken to a distant planet with the father that he loves, with the mother that he loves. His father is killed, he's left out into the desert to die, he's adopted by these wonderfully strange people who live in the desert and has to adapt to a whole new way of life. And in so doing learns who he really is and what the meaning of his life is, why he's here. And he's able, through that journey, that odyssey of his own spirit, to eventually free these people and rid the universe of the corruption that is pulling the universe apart. This is a timeless story. This is a fantastic story that we've all sort of heard before in different ways, in different tales by different authors. But Frank Herbert created the modern telling of that. And now we have it, and we're doing the definitive filmic version of it. So I think that it's a kind of story that everybody, young and old, if you will, people who are into sci-fi or not into sci-fi, can tune this in and love this story. The thing about Dune that I think makes it timeless, that gives it such a wide audience that is not narrowly constrained to sci-fi aficionados, is the fact that it really is a story about the human condition. Yes, it's archetypal and it's set in the future. It has a monster, it has different royal families feuding and so forth, but it deals with human issues in a very classic, traditional narrative. It is not about technology overwhelming human beings. It's not about space wars. It's really a story that in some ways we've seen many, many times in different genres. Herbert has simply chosen to set it 10,000 years in the future in this distant universe. But it's a story that we can all recognize and reach out to. It's not alien. That's why people can see in Dune the archetypes, the metaphors for the world we live in today. I think the international aspect of the crew and the cast has really enriched this production. It is very much like the world we're describing, with the exception of the absence of conspiracy going on. We don't have a lot of people trying to assassinate each other on our crew and our cast, fortunately. But it's a real Babylon. I mean, we have many different languages going on. You can walk down the room and you can hear Italian being translated into Czech, being translated into Ukrainian, being translated back into French and English and German. And I think that it's given us all a sense of the world that we're trying to describe. Working on stage 6 at Barrandov Studios in Prague that was filled with sand was basically like trying to work on the beach for 6 weeks. So if you can imagine walking on the beach for 8 to 12 hours a day, up and down sand dunes, trying to put cameras, trying to get actors to work, breathing this stuff in the air constantly, I think we were all kind of happy to get out of there.